Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Glad to see so many people here. My name is Sebastian, and I'm here today to talk to you about Android development. Give a quick introduction. The first part here, the schedule, I'm going to do a presentation. Don't worry, I won't be talking for 45 minutes. I'll talk for roughly 30 minutes, and we've set aside time for questions afterwards, okay? So what I'm going to ask you, if you have any questions, please write them down. I put slide numbers down here on every slide, so you can write down the slide if that's important. And we'll take them afterwards, because otherwise, I'll be talking forever. We don't want that. Can everybody hear me? I think that's pretty good, right? Perfect. We have a break afterwards if you want to get a beer at Scroll Bar, and then we'll do the workshop. You'll get some hands-on experience. We'll code an app together, at least we'll try to. So today's presentation is really aimed at giving you a brief overview of the Android framework. You don't have to have any kind of programming experience. If you do have, probably some of the things will be made. Why is he telling us this? It'll be okay. We just all need to get kind of on the same level before we start with the workshop, okay? So it is just a quick overview of features. Some of the stuff I'll mention briefly, very briefly, no details. And then it's mainly so when you program your app, you'll say, oh, I really need that feature. You can go back to the presentation. We'll put it online on the video. And you can say, oh, that's the feature I need. I'm going to figure out how to do that. So yeah, really know the possibilities of Android. Be familiar with everything. Today, you should be able to figure out what the requirements for an app, what you need to get started. You should know what it takes to build an app, how to build the UI and different layout elements. You should be able to make an app that fits both phones and tablets, so supporting different screen sizes. And if you join us for the workshop, we'll take all that we've learned in our presentation, we'll put it together, we'll make an app. Cool. So, the requirements for making Android apps. First of all, what I call an acceptable app. That's just an app that works, it runs on your phone, that's it. Okay, you need a PC or a Mac, or you can run Linux as well. You need a little bit of knowledge of Java and the Android framework. And of course, you need an idea. We're not going to go anywhere without an idea. If you want to make an admirable app where people look at it and say, whoa, that's pretty cool, we need to know Java. We need to know XML code. And we need to make appropriate decisions when it comes to UI design. That means picking the right elements for the right kind of data. And then, of course, we need to support various devices. We have tablets, phones, we even have smartwatches now. A lot to take in. And then finally, if we want to make an amazing app, we need to utilize different device features. What I mean by that is, one thing is making an app look good on your phone and then making it look good on a tablet, but why not take advantage of the fact that a tablet has a bigger screen? Take that into account. Also need expertly designed graphics. I'm a software developer. I can't offer you that. That's not what I'm here for, but you need someone to make your app look good. And then, of course, you need a brilliant idea. I don't know, I picked Snapchat here. I'm not sure if that's a brilliant idea, but the CEO is dating a supermodel now, so I think that's brilliant. So we have these three things. We're going to start by making an acceptable app, then an admirable app, and finally an amazing app. And the cool thing is that the acceptable part, we'll cover that in the presentation, next 30 minutes. The workshop will take care of all we need to do for the admirable app, and then finally for the amazing app, well, that's pretty much up to you. You need to learn the extra stuff, you can do that. But you'll have the ground, stones, everything we need to get started. And that's it. Quickly, benefits and challenges in Android app development. You'll reach a huge market. Nearly 49% of mobile devices run Android OS. That's a lot of people. You can hit there. That, of course, means we have to support multiple devices. It'll take time, but it's going to be worth it when you see how good it looks on every device. Cool thing is technology keeps changing, so we'll get new features to play around with, make some cool stuff. And unfortunately, that also means that we have to keep up with these features. Some of the stuff I say today may be gone in 6 months because they figure out a better way to do it. That's the worst when you haven't done anything Android related for a year and you figure out, oh, I have to learn it all over again. So you need to keep up with features. if those of you who are unfamiliar with, like, why is he showing us cupcakes? Android, they name their different versions of the Android operating system according to suites and the alphabet. So they start by saying cupcake, and then donut, and then after a few it came gingerbread, and jelly bean, and lollipop. And then finally here in October they had marshmallow. So the next one is going to be something with an N. So if you have any suggestions, you can mail them to Google. I'll have to figure something out. I'm not sure you can really do that, but. All right, the learning curve, not very steep. It's very easy to get into, and you quickly get some visual results. Unfortunately, that means anyone can do it. So there are more than 1.7 million apps on the Google Play Store right now. That is roughly the population of Qatar, who will be hosting the FIFA World Cup in 2022, if anyone wanted to know that. So what that means is, well, if this right here is your app, and this right here is the Google Play Store, things may get lost. Okay, I don't know if you guys have ever felt like you go on YouTube, you see something that's really amazing, and you're like, has 500 views or something. You're like, why? So much noise. So just don't be so disappointed. I think you already know this. If people don't download your app immediately, that is why we have stuff like marketing. All right. So enough of that. Let's get into the basics of Android. So building blocks. So there are 4 main components of an Android app. Okay. We have something called activities. These are the screens. The UI, this is the visuals, pretty much like a window in a browser. You have something called services. Services run in the background. So say, for example, if you have an app that wants to play music, you'll have a service running that, playing the music for you. We have something called content providers, used to share data between multiple applications, if you have a database. And then we have something called broadcast receivers, which basically tells the rest of the system, hey, you need to know this if you have an alarm, or I took a photo, or something like that. What we will be focusing on today is activities. That's the UI. I don't think there's any app out there that doesn't have anything UI related. That seems kind of weird. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So an activity you have to think of as kind of a blank screen, like an empty canvas. And then to make that look good, you kind of fill it up with different elements. So you have a text, you put that into your activity. You have an image that you put onto the activity, a button, and maybe some more text. So you can kind of have this empty screen and you can fill it up with elements. I kind of see that like as a page on a website, you know. And then to navigate your app, you go from one activity to another, for example. So there can only exist one activity at a time in front of your app. You can only show one activity. When I said website pages, that's like you don't see 2 pages on a website on the same time, you know? That's kind of similar to that. So then we navigate the application by switching different activities, and we use something called intents. And intents are a bit weird. They're like this little box that lets you communicate between the apps, and you can bundle in information if you want. And first of all, it seems weird because what you're going to do is you're going to create an intent, and you're going to say, well, I want to start this app, and then you're going to say, let's start it. It's kind of like an extra step in the process. But what's cool is that in these intents, if you have some sort of information you need to share, you can put that into the package, and you can send it on. Okay? So at first it seems weird. Why would we have this extra step? But that's to make sure that we can send this information. All right. So the first live demo. See if I can get this starting. If everything is well, you'll see here on the left. This is a quick application we made regarding scheduling social media updates. So say Sunday I want to tweet about this, and Friday I want to complain about that. So I'm going to start. If I press on Twitter here on the left, you can see I'll open a new activity. And if I go down, you'll notice that it'll set my default way of communication to Twitter. Same way if I go back, and this time I'll choose Facebook. I scroll down, and we'll see that this time it'll set Facebook for the default thing. Okay? So sharing that information from the main screen to the second one. Simple as that. Cool. All right, let's get back to this. So what you can use these for, well, if you have a photo and you want to share it, and here comes some of the really cool stuff. You say, I have this really cool photo, I want to show my friends, but I'm not really sure in which communication channel I want to show them. Well, you can just say, I'm going to put this photo in my intent, and I'm going to send it out to, I don't really know. You don't have to know. You can just say, I want to share this photo. Android will give you a list of activities that can do that for you. You'll pick whatever you feel like, send an email, put it on Dropbox, whatever, and it'll take care of that for you. And in the same way, you can work it the other way around. If you're in an email and you need to attach a photo, you can say, well, I'm going to ask whatever for a photo. And the Android system will say, you can get it from your camera, you can get it from your gallery, whatever. It'll take that photo, put it back, and now you have your photo in your activity. It's very cool. So you can work with different apps in that way. We're going to see how that works right now. So I'm going to go back to this one again. And down in my contacts, if I want to import a phone number, it'll open my contacts list, which is in no way related to the thing. This is built in on Android, and I can then select exactly whatever contact I want. It'll give me that number back. So you can get information from other apps that way. Now, how exactly does this work? Well, you need to kind of declare what kind of activity you have, and you do this in something called the Android manifest file. So this is a file that exists for every single application. You have one file. It's basically just information about the app that that the Android system needs to know to run the code. Quickly, just you need to declare all your components. So all your activities need to be mentioned in there. Android Studio does that for you, which is very nice. If you create it through that, we'll see that in the workshop. Then here, the intent filters, that's where you'll say like, hey, my activity here, it can show a photo or it can send a video or something like that. You need to ask for extra permissions. If any one of you want to do something with GPS or camera stuff, you need to ask, mention that in your manifest file. Has to ask the viewer, can I access it? Also set your application icon, your app theme, if you want, say, no action bar, and then you say something called the minimum API level. I'm kind of wondering if I'm on the wrong side here. I don't think you do that there. Forget about the last one. I don't know what I've been on. But let's talk about about APIs. So those who are unfamiliar, mostly developers, we need some kind of tool set. We need some code already, because if you want to develop for your app phone, for your Android phone, you don't want to be sitting saying, okay, I want this to happen to this hardware. You want to kind of have a middle layer. So Google has provided us with a lot of code that we can use, which we call the Android API, and it's basically the level between our app and then the operating system. So we use that and to create these apps. Makes it a lot simpler. Now, what happens from time to time, as I mentioned, this Android API gets updated. They add new tools, and unfortunately, what if you have an old phone? You don't run the newest API, the newest Android system. Well, I still want to use the new features. And one cool thing they added is something called the support library, which basically makes newer features available on old phones. It's basically, say if you have like a converter, like an adapter for your Thunderbolt HDMI thing, if anyone's running Mac, I know you have. Or like if you need to fit your SIM card, like new small SIM card into a bigger thing, you'll have a little adapter. So just so you know, this is something that they support. So even though you read about a feature and you're like, oh, this is only for Android 5.0. Don't worry, look it up, and it'll probably have it supported, so it can work way back. I'm not going to talk about this. All right, let's go to fragments here. So in your activities, good. So say if you're on a website, okay, and every time you click a link, it'll open a new window, a new tab. That wouldn't be very good, right? Or if you're on an email, you usually have the list of all your emails, and then you'll click the email and it'll open to the right or something. If that email opened on top of it as a new window, that wouldn't be very good. I think we can all agree on that. And that's basically why Google introduced something called fragments. So what you basically do is you have an activity and then you inflate a fragment into it. So it's kind of a fragment of the screen. And otherwise, it works pretty much like activities. You can say, like, I want my UI elements here and there, and I'll put stuff in it. But it's just way smarter because you'll be able to say, well, this part of the screen I want to be this fragment, and this other part of the screen I want to be another fragment. And I think it's good practice just to use activities as kind of containers, and then always put in a fragment. And then instead of opening a new activity, you can just inflate a new fragment into it. It's much more efficient. It's better for your operating system. It doesn't take nearly as much processing power. So that's a really good way to kind of get through a lot of screens. And there are no real rules about when you should use an activity or a fragment. What I usually do is that if I have a main screen, I'll have every button be a new activity. And then in each of those activities, I'll have a set of fragments that I'll swipe through. It's good. It works that way. If you have a better way, that's all up to you. It's kind of just go with your gut feeling. This is awesome because what this allows us is, say if we have an activity and we have a navigational bar, every time we open, we press that navigation bar, we'll have to open a new activity and open a new navigation bar. But with fragments, what they've done is, for example, this one, you'll have your navigation bar as one fragment, and then when you press the different buttons, it'll inflate new fragments into the bottom. It'll save you a lot of time, a lot of processing power, and I mean, that's just one way that fragments are good to be used. So if you want to make a navigational bar, use it like that. Make a fragment for your nav bar, and then all the content at the bottom. Okay. Then another cool thing is this we call it the master detail flow. So on your right here we have a phone, and say you have one screen, and you do something with that screen, and you'll get another screen on your phone. And what they suggest here, Google, is that let's take advantage of the fact that a tablet has bigger size, and instead on the left we'll just have the fragment A here, and on the right we'll have fragment B. So no reason to switch between screens. And this is particularly useful if you have something like a list. So we have a list on a phone. There's not a lot of space. We'll press one item, we'll get a new screen. But on a fragment, instead we're just going to inflate the second screen into the same view, and we'll have it open easy as that. We can quickly switch through all the list on the left. I think that's cool, and I think I want to show you what that could look like. So we have here a quick little project we threw together. So on the left here, I'll have a list of items. This is categories. I want to know about a highball, and I choose another item, and I'll go in and I'll get that information. So this is on my phone, right? Now, if I'm on my tablet instead, I'll open the drinks, and it'll show me all the different types of cocktails over here on the left. I can then choose, and the second one I'll be able to say I want to know about this one. I'll inflate it in the third. Okay. So this is a very cool way of kind of saying, okay, we know that tablet users have bigger screens. We want to support that. Don't worry about the data here. That's just random. I don't think you'll get a good cocktail out of any of these. So this is just, we needed to put something in for the professor to see. Okay. So that being done, let's take a look at the user interface. So we have a bunch of stuff. Okay, it's all on the floor, and we want to organize it. Then we use something like a bookshelf and some boxes and some glue, and then we'll keep it all nice. We'll make sure it sits where it's supposed to sit. And that's kind of the same way we do it in Android and in a lot of other, like Java Swing, probably some of you know, is we have a lot of things that we want to we want to show. We call them views. And then we have a lot of groups saying like, where should stuff be? We call them view groups. And we combine those, we'll get something like this. So kind of organize everything. So basically, view groups can contain one or more or none view groups or views. And then you put stuff inside of a view group, and then you put more stuff inside of a view group, and more stuff until you get this elaborate layout things. So it'll create kind of like this tree structure. If any one of you are web designers, kind of like HTML. We'll get like, put stuff into more stuff into more stuff. And this is an example. I'm going to walk through this slowly just to make sure everyone understands, because this is pretty much, this is it. So in the beginning, we have our screen, right? This is our main view group, the entire screen. And then in that, we can divide that into fewer view groups. So here you can see I've taken the top one. That'll be one view group. I've taken middle one. That'll be another view group. And the bottom one is going to be a third view group. So the top one, we could say, well, that consists of 4 views. That'll be a good way. The middle, well, we'll have another range of view groups. Put that here. And we're just going to forget about the bottom one, because otherwise there won't be space. So if we take one of these view groups, well, we can make, say, that's a view. And then there is another view group. And in each of these view groups, we have a set of view groups. And in each of these groups, we have a set of views. Okay? So basically what happens is you create this elaborate tree structure of your entire layout. Put stuff into other stuff, and it'll look great. This is what happens. So layout files, well, your layouts, you can describe them in 2 ways. You can use, well, it's called XML code. This is what it'll look like when you created your views. This is not very fun to be programming, okay? So don't worry, we have something else. In Android Studio, they have like a graphical interface. You can drag and drop your views, and it'll create all this code for you, which is nice. And I'm just going to quickly show how that works. So you see here I'm on Android Studio. So this is the design editor. You'll have all the different views and view groups on your left, and you can just drag and drop them into your application. It'll show up here on the right. So in this case, you can see, once again, we have like a device screen. We have something inside of that. We have a linear layout inside of that, text view, and so on and so on. And if I go to my text preview down here, you'll be able to see that whatever you have over here is basically what we have here, okay? So it's the same. You can use both. I am going to make a quick recommendation in a second. Let's just go back to these 2 fellas. Perfect. And there we are. Perfect. Yeah, so one thing I would mention, I think it's a good idea to know both. Maybe not know exactly XML code, but at least know how it works, because some things are new and they're not rendered in the design editor, and you drag and you drop and it snaps to somewhere. Like, it's always good just to know how XML code works, and we're going to do both in the workshop. Let's see how much I'm talking. All right, I'll hurry up a bit. Some examples, layouts, how you can place elements. So the linear layout is basically just, well, a way of saying I'm going to put stuff either in in the vertical direction or in the horizontal direction. And so in this case, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the vertical direction, and then you can put more stuff into it, which is smart, because if you then use another linear layout inside of it, the horizontal direction, you can make a grid like this. Okay, so it's just putting stuff in a row. Then they have something called the grid layout. It sucks, to be honest. I have no good experience with using this, so you can pretty much achieve anything in this that you can in the linear layout as well. And yeah, so I just recommend don't use this. We have something called the relative layout, which positions elements according to other elements. So I can say this button, I want that to be in the top left. I want it to be on the top. I want it to be on the left. I can say this button, I want to be in the bottom, I want it to be on the right. And then I can say, well, my third button, I want that below button 1 and to the right of button 1. And I want it to the left of button 2, and I want it to go all the way down. So you can position elements relative to each other. Also a good one. The frame layout, this is used to hold just a single element. We use this for fragments. Simple as that. And then we have some elements, some views that we usually use. We have the text view, which is basically just a text. We have something called the text field. Edit text is actually the name in Android, where you can put in text if you want. Have images, buttons, and then we have checkboxes. These are like the 5 main elements that you'll probably need. And if you say we put all this stuff in and it fills too much, we have something called the scroll view. So you can, you'll not be able to see, but the text continues down here, and you can put it in a scroll view so the user will be able to scroll. That's it. The recycler view, you could say you have a linear layout and you could just fill stuff in and keep filling it in if you have a long list, but it's not very efficient, and it'll quickly make sure that your app can't move more than 1 frame per second. So they added something called the list view. 5.0, they renamed it to the recycler view and did something new stuff. I don't have time to talk about it, how it works. It's very clever, but I can't cover it right now, and unfortunately I don't think we'll be able to make it in the workshop. But in case you want to show a list of something, you'll use the recycler view. You have to promise me that, okay? I'm going to skip the live demo. Okay, so when you are building your app, there'll be mainly 2 groups of files, okay? You'll have, first of all, your resources. These are all the elements that your app is made out of. Your images, your colors, names, layouts, all that. And then if you look at, so if we have a house, that'll basically be your doors, your furniture, bricks, all that. The problem here is that even if you have a very nice door, if you don't have a doorknob, it's not going to work. Or if you have a $1,000 lamp, it's not going to be very efficient if you don't have a switch. And that's why we have Java code. So this is where all the functional programming is made, all the functionalities. So yeah, knobs, switches, nails, it's all like that. And the cool thing is Android Studio will generate a lot of this code for you. So even though if you're not super experienced Java developer, you can still make a pretty decent house. Yeah, I wanted to show you how that looks in Android Studio. I'm going to jump back to this one. So out here in my project folder, you can see I'll have the manifest file. I mentioned that earlier. You'll have a folder containing nothing but all your Java code. That's up here. So that's all the functionality. And we have our resources, which I'll get to in just a second. So these are all the other stuff that your app is made up of. I should probably get these open. All right. Perfect. Great. Now the different resources, drawables. On the left here, we have an app with no drawables used, so it's just standard general Android things. And on the right, I'm not going to say it's pretty, but I think it's prettier, at least, because I made it, using custom drawables, so custom buttons, custom backgrounds and stuff like that. So as I said, you need this, you really do. And your drawables folders contain then images. You can make gradients if you want to make cool color transitions. And then shapes. So shapes are basically just something like geometric figures that you can program. I'm just quickly going to show what I mean by that. So in this demo right here, we have this little bottle spinner thing. And then notice how the circle, when I add more players, it'll change.
So is it an SVG?
Huh?
Is it an SVG type events?
No, this is all done in code in Android. So this is done on the fly. But yeah, it works like SVG, so you can zoom in and out as much as you want. So this is just programmed in, and if you have any shapes that you need to react to, it'll be better than putting in 2,000 images. I can actually add as many as I want in this one. Oh, I guess we set the limit at 20. We could do as many as we want because it's programmed in. Yeah, you also have your layout files. I mentioned them earlier. The whole XML code, you'll keep them here in your resources as well. And then when you want to inflate a fragment, you'll just say, hey, this layout file, I need that now. I'm going to show that on my screen. Values, these are all about avoiding code duplication. So if we have the same name occurring on 3 screens, for example, if we want to change the name, we're going to have a problem because we'll have to change it 3 times. So we have the values, which is basically you make a reference to that instead. I'll create a thing called an app name. And then whenever I need to change that app name, I can do it here. And because it's referenced, it's all the others. And it's best practice. You don't have to do it. You should do it for your own sake. And you can do that with strings, texts. You can do it with colors. And you can do it with measurements. So if you want to have certain text size, you can reference that as well. So you just change it once, and it'll change in your entire app. Quickly about these different measurements. So Android developed, well, let's start by this. We have a button, right? It's 160 pixels wide. And if we have one screen that's 320 pixels, it'll look like this. Unfortunately, if we have a screen that's 1080 pixels, it'll look like this. And it's not very easy to click on. So what they added, Google, was something called density independent pixels, DIP or DP. And it basically just takes into account how many pixels are on your screen and how big is your screen, and it'll calculate that for you and make sure that it looks the same. That's basically all you need to know from this. It's cool. So use that. That's the message I'm trying to convey here. Use DP, or you can use DIP if you want to write another letter. It's the same. Animations, you can make animations as well, switching between fragments. I'm not going to cover this, but it's there. It's cool. And finally, we have something called qualifiers. So for each kind of resource, you can specify a set of rules. And this is kind of very important if you want to make the cool stuff. So for example, you can say, well, if I have a certain screen size, I want to make it like this. Or if I have a certain orientation, say I'm in landscape, I want to make it differently. And I'm going to show this in our final live demo, I think. That was not the wrong. So up here, go to the main screen, you'll notice how the buttons are put up in a 2x3 grid. And then by using a qualifier, I'm saying, well, instead of having a 2x3 grid, when I turn my phone, make sure we go back to that, we'll have it on the different way. And that's basically just a qualifier saying, if you turn your phone this way, we'll use this layout file instead. So qualifiers is the way to kind of make this responsive thing. And you can use it, for example, if you made a lot of text and you'll say, well, if it's in Danish, if your phone is in Danish, I'll use the Danish text. And if it's in Bulgarian, I'll use the Bulgarian text. You can do a lot of stuff like that. I'm running out of time here. So storage options, the slides will be put on later, so I'm pretty much just going to skip through this. Most storage on Android apps, they work online, right? Like you have an online database, you fetch data. Sometimes you need to have it locally, and you can use these different parts, shared preferences. You can use them in files, and you can use a database. I'm going to skip through this because we're not going to be using it. All right, so quick recap. 4 components: activities, services, content providers, and broadcast receivers. Activities are your screens. We use an intent to send information from one activity to another and to open a new activity. Fragments, we inflate those into an activity, and multiple fragments can be inflated into the same activity. You saw with the master detail flow. User interface, tree structure, view groups, views. Layouts, we had the linear layout, the relative layout, and the frame layout being the most important ones. Text views, edit text is supposed to say there. Image view, button, checkbox, these are the most important views. Scroll view, if you want to make sure your user can scroll up, down, left, right is possible as well. Recycler view, we use that for a long list of data. You have resources, you have your Java code, you put them together. Resources are all the cool stuff. Java code is all the behavior. Anyone who's HTML, CSS, they know that that's the content, how it looks. And then JavaScript is the It's the behavior, if anyone comes from that area. Drawables consist of images, gradients, shapes, layout files as well. You can find them in your resources folder. Have different values. We've referenced that to make sure that we avoid code duplication. Animations, skip through that. Qualifiers, make sure that you can support multiple devices based on a rule set for each resource. And then we had different kinds of storages that you can check through the slides if you want. Cool. So if you want to learn more, Android's developer side is very, very, very great. There's a lot of graphical design principles, developer guides, training. Pretty much find any information there. You have the Google Developers channel and the Android Developers YouTube channel that put up little bites. Be some cool stuff there. And then here at ITU we have the course Mobile App Development. It's a master. Underlined it because it's a professional education. It's not what you do after your bachelor's. It's once you're done with your master's. It's 7.5 ECTS points, and I'm not sure. I can't promise you yet that you can take it, but you'll have to talk to the study administration about that.